after her failed campaign for the U.S. president, Kamala Harris, the former Democratic nominee, is doing a book tour with her new book, 107 Days, which is, I think, how long she was campaigning since, after Biden dropped out, she didn't have much to go on. And I think the book, at least from what I've heard, it's like her reflections on what she should have done differently. That's beside the point. We don't have to talk about the book because what did happen during the book tour on one of the events is she got protesters. She got protesters outside of the building, and some people even getting inside and yelling while she was giving a speech. And those protesters were the so-called pro-Palestinian protesters, or rather pro-Hamas protesters, accusing her of being complicit in the Israeli genocide. Kamala Harris being complicit, being too pro-Israeli for this kind of crowd, which is something I have been talking about for a bit, and I think it's an interesting phenomena. So we'll take a look at, I think, broader aspect of how much sort of the left is pushing on the Democratic Party for being too pro-Israel. A little bit later, we can also bring up Do You and Itself that came out, I think, a few days ago. Francesca Albanese came out with reports saying Western countries are complicit in the Israeli genocide. We can also bring back a little bit of Brett Cooper. For those who remember, we talked about her a few months ago when the Daily Wire thing was happening. And now she is attacking some of the conservatives for trying to, not allow neo-Nazis into the Republican Party. And at the end, we can also talk a little bit about Mamdani winning, with the main theme basically being what is happening, or rather, I think the quote from Ayn Rand that explains this the most is, in any conflict between two men or two groups who hold the same basic principles, it is the more consistent one who wins. And I think this is what we see happening here is the more consistent advocates on both sides seem to be taking over. Welcome to the reality show. Joining me today are Marco, Richard, and I do have so the clip that was published by GNS is about 7 minutes. I managed to bring it down to about 1 minute. Do you guys want to say something before we watch it, or should we just watch it? Marco?
Yeah, a minute of Kamala is still too long, but it's fine.
Well,
Yeah.
only like half of it is Kamala, because then it's the protesters.
It feels like she's back, isn't it? It's like a bad smell that won't go away. Not Nancy Pelosi levels, but still. I see Nancy Pelosi's also exiting stage left finally, so maybe that's the back of her. But yeah, we're here. One last hurrah from Kamala.
All right, let's see. So I've cut it down. Basically, this in the first part, you're gonna see them being on site and talking outside the venue. There is also part where they talk inside, but I cut it down because it's inaudible and you cannot hear it. But she actually does say something after the protester talk, which I think is interesting. So let's watch it. Okay, so I think I cut it down wrongly. So let me see if I
But
can.
that was the best bit.
Yes, that is the
right.
highlight. You've just seen the highlight.
Yeah, okay. Can you, Marco, can you talk for a bit? Because I need to get the actual clip, sorry.
I'll walk for to cover your house because you've done your
Thank
homework.
you.
Well, to be honest, the tragedy of this event is that the theater where she's doing the presentation of her book, the promotion of the book, is actually full. Can you imagine how sad you must be to turn up at an event with Kamala Harris? You really must celebrate failure to ridiculous extent, to pay a ticket to see Kamala Harris talking about how she failed a campaign after being a failed vice president. I mean, frankly, the woman was covering Otto Penn's back all the time. We knew that Joe Otto Penn was actually not up to the job. He wasn't really there totally, but she pretended he was a functional president and politician. And then when he was just impossible to present him as a candidate, she was jettisoned in. And of course, she was unprepared, like she was unprepared to be vice president because she was just a a quota, really, DI quota for the Democrats. So, after a defeat against Donald Trump just over a year ago, she's just written a book trying to be still relevant, trying to remind people, hello, I'm still here. Do you remember the word salad that I used to do? And as she goes to these events, of course, the Democrats, the ultra pro-Hamas people are popping up. And as you said, they're accusing her of not have been enough on the side of the terrorists, because she hasn't really come out and said, I hate Israel, I want the state to be gone, like you do. So that's why these people have not enough blood. They smell blood in the water, but they want to see the blood of Jews flowing in the street. Otherwise, they will never be appeased. These people are full of hate and full of love for jihad, and very little regard for life itself. So they behave like the thugs that they are, really. I mean, that's the gist, really.
Richard, do you want to add something, or we do have the video ready?
Might as well go straight to the clip and then come off the back of that.
Okay, so we'll have to like skip a little bit. So the first part we're gonna see is them like talking outside, and then we'll switch to Kamala talking.
A genocidaire and war criminal who is not welcome in our city. That's right. For 2 years, this genocide in Gaza has intensified. And we don't think that war profiteers should enjoy any kind of peace, let alone a triumphant book tour.
Of the way we should have spoken publicly about our criticism of the way that Netanyahu and his government were executing this war. We should have used, we had more levers in terms of leverage that we did not use. And I write about this in the book.
So this was basically the gist of it. I do love the fact that we now have the word for the female genocide, the genocide there. I think they actually, like, that's the way they the protesters outside said it. But sort of look at it and follow the events, right? They are protesting her for being too complicit in the Israeli genocide, which, again, there is no Israel genocide. And Biden administration did a lot to prevent Israel from actually defending itself. We can talk about, the fact that they prevented the strikes in Iran. Biden wanted to shut down the offensive to Rafah. The Hezbollah offensive wouldn't have happened probably if they did let Biden know. By that I mean the Beeper operation. They didn't inform the American administration that was going to happen, precisely fearing that it would stop it from happening. So you have all of this, and you can go on and on about the way the Biden administration stopped Israel from properly defending itself. And again, that is not good enough. Basically, as long, and I always bring up the example when people say there are no pro-Palestinian voices in media, right? It's like, what do you mean by when you say pro-Palestinian? Do you mean that as long as you believe the state of Israel should exist, as long as you don't advocate for, from the river to the sea, as long as you don't advocate for Hamas to basically establish a theocracy across all of Israel, because that is your option right now, that means you're too pro-Israel. So if you take Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, those are too pro-Israel. It's interesting, like the nickname Genocide Joe and Genocide Harris, right? It's not Trump has that nickname, who's the more pro-Israel one. He doesn't have that nickname. It's people who are less pro-Israel because they are not going far enough. And what is the answer from Kamala Harris? It's not that, no, we did shut it, or we did do what was in our power. We did what we thought was right. It's no, you're right. We didn't do enough. And if we get a chance, we'll do better. So they are. She is bending the knee. She is basically accepting. Again, people who disrupt her event, people who came to disrupt her event, people who, I mean, she did, I think she threw in something, one of the hecklers, she threw something like, oh, if you don't support me, that's how Trump wins or something like that. But then she accepted all of their premise. So it is really the sort of more consistent ones win. And this is what the Democrats are allowing. They are allowing for the more radical parts or for the more extremist or whatever you want to call it parts to take over. I mean, take with Mamdani, right? It's he did won the Democratic primary and he was embraced by the Democratic Party. Marco, any thoughts on this one?
Well, yeah, I mean, you said it. Somebody heckled her, and the first reaction for her was to pander to that kind of audience, to actually admit, yeah, we didn't do enough. I mean, Israel is still there. Not only that, but okay, she's not very bright, so it's like it's like complaining here in Britain about David Lammy or Diana, about this kind of characters, which have reached a point in politics in public life just on the back of or the way they look rather than what they can do. So Kamala Harris is not very bright, so she just went along with it. But she also made a stupid point about, I'm glad we have a ceasefire, like the ceasefire comes down from the sky, not acknowledging the fact that, hang on a second, Trump has reached a situation where he was able to, I still don't understand how he managed to get the hostages out of Hamas's hands. And there must have been some sort of compromise, but that's a different story. But she talks about like events occurs in the Middle East, just like the weather appears. It's nobody's fault. It's in fact it's the inhumane behavior of Israel that, if anything else, is to complain about, to condemn. Not talk about the fact that Israel was attacked in a vicious, inhumane way. That's a proper inhumane behavior. It's effectively a constant victim blaming from this kind of people. But again, you see that if you appease these thugs, these people who want the end of Israel, nothing will ever be enough. In the end, if you have this kind of allies, there will always be your enemy, there will always be your critics, because they will never have enough blood served to them in order to appease them. They just won't go away.
Yeah. I mean, firstly, on your point about, the female name for a genocider, I don't understand why they're inventing one, frankly. I mean, they insist on using the word actor for actresses. So why suddenly it's a gender-specific word? I don't get it. But then, of course, I'm looking for consistency in among lefty think, and it's all over the place, isn't it? Contradicting itself, left, right, and centre. But I think what Marco says there about her talking in terms of floating, what Ayn Rand would call floating abstractions all the time, things floating in the air. She talks about, hunger, disease, or she talks about that work needs to be done, but doesn't talk about what work, by whom, in what manner. But just, one of these sort of floating things which has no connection to reality, no connection to anything definite. She's trying to be vague. She's trying to agree with anyone and everything, as usual. I mean, one of the things she says after one of the hecklers, who is basically she praises them at the same for heckling. Because she's got a past of being pro-injustice, and that sometimes involves heckling people. So she attempts to win the crowd back round, and bear in mind, of course, the crowd is already sympathetic to her, because why the hell would you turn up otherwise, apart from the hecklers? And she tries to win them round by saying, well, heckling's good. It's always good to disrupt someone's meeting, even if it's my own, because I'm pro-injustice. I'm pro, fighting injustice. So again, she's endorsing the concept of force and disruption to get your opinion across, whilst then taking that opinion for what it is and then agreeing with it. And then, of course, she talks in all the Kamala-esque terms that we're familiar with. Phrases like, "I appreciate the emotion and sentiment of the people who spoke up." But then, of course, essentially it goes on to talk about what they said, not how they said it, but it's the emotion and sentiment, the nice fluffy stuff. But of course, reason is nowhere there, except that she is actually giving her own reasons when it comes to it. Her reasons are that Israel is at fault. And of course, you've got the standard argument of Netanyahu's government is the fault for how they conducted the war. There's no Hamas, there's no terrorism, there's no October the 7th in any of the way in which it's focused or presented or emphasized. It's all Netanyahu's government made the war worse than it should have been, and they should have conducted it via letter and meme in order to persuade Hamas to relinquish the hostages at the time and to end the war and surrender. But of course, none of that happened. Even now, none of that happened. So and then she talks about making a speech as being, well, no, I did make a speech. That's words are everything to her. And it doesn't matter what is said when. She can claim anything at any time. And of course, all of this, the book tour itself, the book itself, all of it is trying to rewrite a dead legacy, frankly. I mean, even George Clooney's thrown her under a bus and said she shouldn't have been the candidate. And of course, we know that Obama was about as late as you could possibly be to endorse her at the time. They got what they deserved ultimately by evading the issue of picking the wrong candidates. And of course, this is her trying to win back some legacy. But of course, the protester outside, what he says about a legacy is that it's a legacy of genocide, and he says we will not allow her to be remembered in any other way. Well, I don't want to remember her at all, frankly, but if I've got to remember her, it's for that appalling drawl that she's got, and the fact that it's certainly not in relation to Israel, and everything that you said, Daniel, about the fact that the Democrats did everything to leak and scupper and hold back and restrain Israel from being able to do what was necessary, and that is what ultimately prolonged the war.
Yeah, and what do we see happening? Is this sort of, I'm not sure. Have you guys ever seen the Death of Stalin? The sort of like a comedy. It's a pretty good one, and I think it's made by British studio or like British actors. Yeah, for those who haven't seen it, it's basically talks about when Stalin dies, and it's like a comedy thing. And there is like one scene in there where like they accept resolutions in like the top council, and whenever there is something somebody proposes, and everybody looks around until they see a majority of people raise their hand, and then everybody raises their hand. It's like, okay, now we can like all unanimously agree. And so all the resolutions are passed unanimously because everybody just votes to see looks to see the majority. And what we see happening is this like enforcing of discipline, right? It's or not even we. It's not even like the Democratic Party itself looks at what is like the plurality opinion or what is the majority opinion. It's the more leftist or the most leftist people saying, no, this is how it's gonna be, and then them forcing it on everybody in the Democratic Party, and Democratic Party simply folding, especially somebody like Kamala Harris, because and I think this is something, and now here it goes to like the main thing. I think this is something that either the right or maybe even sort of more broadly objectivists, I think, might need to like enforce more, like this amount, because what it is like consistency, right? It's the leftist, because what is the consistent leftist position on Israel? It's believing in the destruction of Israel. What is the view of Jews? Sort of the most consistent leftist view of Jews. It is anti-Semitism. Look at Karl Marx on the Jewish question. Anti-Semitism and anti-capitalism are very much intertwined because the Jewish people are viewed as the sort of more capitalist people, the more people who do stand for better things, and that is what is being hated. That is what is being attacked. Israel isn't attacked for doing a genocide, which it isn't, right? So it's not being attacked for that. It is attacked because it is willing to stand in savage land. It is willing to stand up for Western values in a part of the world where there are none. So this is what is being attacked, and because try to like throw it on the other side. Imagine like pro-capitalist people, or even objectivists, when Margaret Thatcher was the prime minister, go to like her talk and criticize her for not being pro-capitalist enough, which is right? She wasn't going far enough. She wasn't sort of like a full-on capitalist. Yet we still appreciate her. She was in the right place and she did a lot of good things. But this amount of basically willing to stand up for more consistency is something we almost exclusively see in the left. And I think this is what, in some ways, is losing us the fight. I'm wondering, Marco, if you have any thoughts on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these people are not pro-Palestinians because right now the Palestinians are being butchered by Hamas, their own government. These people are not against genocide because right now there is a genocide, a massive genocide. The blood can be seen from satellite views in Sudan. And civilians are deliberately being targeted by the people supported by the UAE, Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and this kind of lovely, lovely, cuddly Arabs that we love so much to love. So these people are not in favor of life as such. They just want to impose their view of the world. And the view of the world is largely people should be herded, should be treated like cattle. Because if you really love life, if you really love people, if you really want people to be living a good life, being happy, be wealthy, you should leave them alone. Stop trying to impose your view on every single individual. Start championing individual right, because that's the only way you can guarantee that people will make the best of their own life. If you are pro-workers, you don't put the kind of regulation and taxation which makes workers worse off. If you are pro-freedom, you don't start putting in place all sorts of legislation that stops freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and all this kind of stuff. So the problem that these people to the right as well, we will talk about it later on, these people do not see individuals as sovereign, as able to deal with their own life and make their own choices. They want to impose them because in the end, they're power lusters. They want power over people. They want to be the ones that will tell people what to do, how to do it. They see themselves as the elite. They see themselves as the people who have the right to be squashing down, giving order, making laws. And this is how they see life. They see force as above freedom. And that's why they're so dangerous. That's why nothing will ever appease them until they are the Hitlers, until they are the Stalins, until they are the whatever kind of regime you think of, they want to be at the top of it.
Yeah, just quickly, one thing I would throw that they are not pro-Palestinian in the way that they do not actually want the improvement of the lives of Palestinian. But in the same way, Palestinians are not pro-Palestinian because they do not want the improvement of Palestinian lives. So they are pro-Palestinian in a way that they do support Palestinians who want to simply spend their life killing Jews, that want to dedicate their life into impoverishing basically their own people, in exchange for being able to attack Israel and possibly, or at least have a chance to destroy Israel and possibly even manage it. And that is what these leftists are demanding of the Democratic Party, right? Abandon Israel. Do not defend Israel. Let Israel fall, or even better, support the destruction of Israel. That is what is being demanded of the Democrats.
That's right. You made the point. The point here is that Israel is a threat for the theocracies and the various dictatorships around the Middle East, because they're showing everywhere that actually a free country is the most successful country. A free country is a country where people can live in peace. That's why they're always attacking Israel. That's why they're trying to destroy physically, because they cannot propose a system or an alternative to Israel which is based on force and tyranny, because it doesn't exist. Free country is always more successful than a tyranny.
Yeah, and of course,
Sorry, Richard, I'll just throw in one more thing. One thing I remember from Nikos Soteriakopoulos had a talk in San Diego, and he talked about sort of the why the leftists need to hate Israel. And the fact is, what is the belief of Israel, right? It's whenever a people or whenever a population is down, it's because of oppression. It's because somebody else, some imperialism, something like that came in and extracted value, or some capitalists came in and extracted value from the workers, right? And what are the Jewish people? But not people that have been repressed or oppressed for thousands of years in every single country, kicked out of many of the countries, having committed pogroms against them, and then fleeing to Israel or to mandate of Palestine with mostly nothing, and being able to develop a modern economy with no natural resources. Just absolute like there's the joke about like Moses went 40 years in a desert just to find one place in the Middle East where there's no oil. It's like there was nothing there, no natural resources, yet they were able to survive. They were able to fight against six nations. They were able to preserve the nation of Israel based on their own value, based on their own work, based on their own individuality, despite the so-called oppression. Yeah, but sorry, Richard. Yeah.
And sorry, I would also like to add that part of the fault here is also on Israel itself, because Israel relies too much on the defense systems. They seem to exist to defend themselves, which should be exactly the opposite. They should defend themselves to exist. The ultimate goal should be to exist, to survive, and so every action they take should be directed to achieving their goal. That's why you shouldn't tell Gazans, we're about to bomb you, free the area, because the terrorists will leave as well. You should take every action which makes sure that you survive. And by playing the kind of altruistic game that we've been playing in Israel, you're never going to achieve the kind of level. You just survive, you just live another day, but ultimately their goal is slipping away.
Yeah. No. Yeah, Richard, go on.
Are you two gaslighting me? Right. Okay. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I agree. Absolutely. Good points. Absolutely. For both of you making there. And of course, within Israel, what makes Israel great is the fact that it allows those human minds in Israel to be free, doesn't it? And there aren't many of them. Certainly not compared with many other of the countries that surround it. Israel isn't a country famous for its natural resources, but its ability of the humans and the human mind to generate the wealth and success, freedom and happiness that Israelis have, and that's what so many envy, including those lefties that you're talking about. I think on your point about consistency, Daniel. I mean, obviously, lots of people often talk about whether it's worse to be a hypocrite than to be consistently wrong. Of course, neither are the way to go. And obviously, the fact that you act on your convictions, i.e. you're not a hypocrite, is still only half the story. What those convictions are based upon, whether they're linked to reality, and therefore whether they are pro-human, because if they are linked to reality, they will be, then or not, is the crucial factor. And then whether you act on those convictions is the second part of it. But being consistently wrong and being consistently following the herd or following the drift of the lefty room by its what was her phrase, by its emotion and sentiment, being led by those factors rather than anything else, is just a desire to be liked. It's not a desire to be right. And I think that's what you're seeing with people like Kamala Harris. And when she's talking about all of the things that she wished they did do or wish they had done, and uses phrase like talking about levers or levers, in terms of using those levers against Israel, what she really means is putting pressure on Israel, and what she wishes she had done is what the herd now wants, given that she's not going to do it anyway, so there's no risk to her credibility by saying so now anyway. So all of that's in what she says, quite honestly, and I think it's depressing to listen to her at the best of times, but certainly this I mean, the guy out in the street is wrong about just about everything. The guy protesting her, including that it's a triumphant book tour, frankly. But yeah. Sorry,
But they
sniped.
are in Seattle, so it's understandable.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Seattle is, I want to say it's a lost cause, but I'm sure there are people pro-reason in Seattle, but good luck to you, and I suggest you move.
He probably meant it sarcastically, triumph. But so we can move on a little bit, although we are still on topic. Let's listen to a quick thing from Jill Stein, and I want people to guess where this is from. Jill Stein was, of course, the Green candidate in 2024 and 2016 for the President of the United States.
I want to speak to the massacre now taking place before our eyes in Gaza. I speak as someone who deplores violence in all its forms and condemns violence against civilians of any nation. The war crimes being perpetrated by Netanyahu against Palestinians, however, are in a league of their own and have reached genocidal proportions, with Palestinians denied food, water, medicine, and electricity, while being relentlessly bombed as they're forced to flee their homes, running for their lives. President Biden and bipartisan leaders are not only complicit, they are full partners in Netanyahu's war crimes, supplying the bombs raining down on Gaza, the airplanes dropping them.
Partners in Netanyahu war crimes. Marco, do you want to guess which date is this from? I think we've played it in the past.
Well, I bet it's not long after October the 7th, to be honest.
It was in November 2023. So, yeah. And here is the exact same thing, right? More leftist, or sort of more people on the left, like the Green Party, which is further left than the Democratic Party. What are they saying? The Biden administration is complicit in genocide, and what should happen is complete shutdown of relations with Israel. And this is being applauded. Go look at some of the counties in the 2024 election. The Green candidate, especially in the Arab communities, were winning over the Democratic Party precisely because of the Palestinian issue, because of this one specific issue. So, I do also have the Libertarian candidate, but Marco, do you want to any quick thoughts on the?
It's a phenomenon we've seen all over Europe, all over the world, really. I mean, the Palestinian, the so-called Palestinian anti-Israel cause is taking over the programs of every political party on the left, because they see themselves as the protectors of the weak and all this kind of stuff. But they always jettison the context. Why are bombs dropping over Gaza? Yeah, because Israel is dropping them. Why are they dropping them? Because on October the 7th, 23, the biggest, most inhumane attack on a nation has occurred since the Second World War. I mean, over 1,000 people were slaughtered on the spot. Kids at a festival, music festival, were slaughtered and taken hostages in Gaza. I mean, they're still holding the body of some of the hostages. So we're not talking about a vicious attack from Israel part, but it was Israel trying to defend itself in order to survive, as I mentioned earlier on. I mean, this kind of violence, the violence that she condemned in any form, I bet that if somebody went into her house and started stealing stuff, she probably would go straight to the gun or would throw something at them. Isn't that violence? Isn't that a form of violence? Well, that's defense. That's exactly what Israel is doing. And if you defend yourself against somebody who initiates violence against you, it's perfectly legitimate. In fact, if somebody bullies you or slaps you in the face, you hit them in the balls so hard that next time they will never consider even coming towards you in order to bully you. But these people ignore the facts of reality and they take the side of the terrorists or the bullies on the side of death.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was going to make the same point that Marco just made there concerning violence when she says about deploring violence in all its forms. I mean, when a policeman holds your arm around your back in a half Nelson and marches you off to prison, he's being, that is violence towards you in the sense that your arm hurts. But of course, it's in order to keep other people safe. If you're in favor of freedom, for example, you're also in favor of there being prisons for those that try and violate the freedom of others by stealing their stuff or trying to murder them or harm them. It's not that freedom should be for everyone, regardless of their actions. It's based on what those actions are and the consequences of those actions. But of course, she's always severing. This woman, Jill Stein's always severing, cause from effect as usual. So when she talks about the Palestinian people being denied water and all the rest of it, medicine and stuff. Denied by whom? Denied by, not by Israel, but by the consequences of their own actions. They would have all the water and medicine and everything that Israel has if they behaved like Israel, and in the sense of using minds, their own minds, to create their own wealth, to live productive lives and create those things that we're talking about, instead of creating destruction and annihilation of the Jews being their goal. When that's the case, the consequences of the action deny them the stuff that Israel has, and that is only just, frankly. But of course, this is the distortion. This is the fact that the people always want to sever cause from effect, and they always want to just blame or just praise and make no distinction between one camp or another half the time, so that everyone's a grey morass of equal, regardless of their actions. And that in itself is an evil lack of distinction.
So I have a few more thoughts, but let's actually take a look at Chase Oliver as well. He was the libertarian candidate for the president of the United States in 2024. And I think this clip is from about a year ago.
But I want to make one thing clear. I'm keeping plenty of my powder dry to throw ammo right at Joseph R. Biden, his war criminal ways, and his proxy wars, and his warfare state all over the world. So I want to speak loud and clear to the millions of students right now who are protesting the warfare state in their college campuses all over the country. If I am the nominee, there will be a young person on the stage, and the only person on the stage, that says, end the genocide, ceasefire now, and end the war machine.
Thankfully, the room kind of looked like not everybody is on board, so maybe libertarians are not fully lost yet. But again, this is libertarian. This is somebody who's supposed to stand for freedom, somebody who's supposed to stand for individual rights. And what do you get from him? Attacking Israel for defending itself, a free nation for defending itself, and for doing not even enough to properly defend itself, and praising like Marxist college students violating property rights, many of them who had to be arrested because they are violating the policy of the school as well as law. And the libertarian candidate goes out of his way to praise them for standing up to Israel. Again, these people are not your allies. These people are not going to vote for you. They hate you, and they'll get rid of you as soon as they get a chance. Yet, even somebody who's now, there is a question if the more consistent libertarian position on Israel is the destruction of Israel or preservation of Israel, since libertarians are so vacuous in what they actually do stand for. But again, even he is trying to appease, instead of offering to be more pro-Israel, allowing more leeway than even Trump does. He goes the opposite route. He appeases the anti-Israel crowd. Marco,
that's just a consequence of what it means being a liberal. Put freedom as a primary, something that comes down from the sky without a real justification behind it. You're gonna come up with some stupid compromise and statements. I mean, it's necessarily the way you're gonna go if you think that freedom itself is the starting point of a philosophy or a way of moving.
I would jump, like, not even as a primary, but as like an axiom, as like you start your whole worldview with freedom, with no idea of what even everything is about.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. If you know what objectivism is about, the staggering thing is the consistency and how you can always answer the question why. Why are you saying this? And why you say that? And why you say the other? Because it's based on reality, based on the fact that you do not make things up. You just express what the world is like, and then you move on from there. So you will never be found as a contradicting yourself unless you make a mistake, because there is not contradiction in reality. There isn't a rock that's not a rock. There isn't a fish that is a bird at the same time. I mean, these kind of things only come from having a consistent and logical and reality-based kind of view of the world. Anything else will lead to all sorts of crazy conclusion. You're gonna be a lefty, you're gonna be a fascist, a socialist, whatever. It's all made up on fake views or war realities.
And of course, one of the other things that Chase Oliver and libertarians generally, one of the points he makes, again, where he's wrong, is he starts with the notion that government is automatically bad, no matter what it's doing, and that anything that a government or a president or whatever says is therefore wrong. And he makes the point, or he made the point during the campaign, and certainly around the time that you're talking about, that it wasn't for presidents or parliamentarians to solve the problem in Gaza, because there were many people on both sides of in Israel and in Gaza who see their neighbors as brothers. Now, frankly, if you actually understand that a lot of the kibbutzes, prior to October the 7th, on October the 6th, did see their neighbors as brothers, their Gazans as brothers in that way. And sadly, that's some of the reason that many of them were killed and abducted. And of course, going back to 2005 and the disengagement from Gaza, that whole momentum was designed to, under the false premise that these people are just like us and will do just like us, if only. So we'll force our people out and leave them to imitate us, or at least do their own version of productivity and positive living, which when they did the absolute opposite. So all of that is the consequence of reality and what he's actually saying. Again, he's missing the point. He's starting with the false idea that government, whatever it does, is wrong and shouldn't exist. But government, of course, does have some purposes. They should be far more limited than the ridiculous amount of meddling in people's lives that they've got at the moment. I mean, the key point of Ayn Rand is that the government should get out of your way. But of course that it should be there for certain functions. Those functions being pretty much three functions: keeping you safe from abroad, keeping you safe within from violence or crime within your country with a police force, from abroad with defence force, and of course a court system should allow for arbitration between parties according to a fair system. Those being the three key elements, and everything else being unnecessary. Ultimately, if you actually look at how countries ought to be run. But of course, we're a long way from that. And that of course is, even if you were aiming at that goal right now, you'd have to be taking it in a series of stages. But yeah, I think he's wrong in a different way, but he's still wrong. But he is consistently wrong again. Not a hypocrite.
Yeah, and when it comes to, again, talking a little bit more about consistency, let's actually look at the conservatives. Specifically, let's look at the quick clip from Brett Cooper. For those who don't remember, she's like this young, sort of like big star. She was on Daily Wire. She eventually left, and now she's doing like her own thing. She has her own channel. And she talked a little bit about the Tucker Carlson situation, where Tucker Carlson invited Nick Fuentes, very known white nationalist, on a show, and then Heritage Foundation defended him. Now I think Heritage Foundation is sort of like went back against it. The president said like, "Oh, I don't watch the news. I didn't know who Nick Fuentes is," which is like, what? You're like a president of the Heritage Foundation. How do you not know who like these people are? Well, let's take a quick look at what she said, specifically what she said about Ted Cruz, with Ted Cruz also, going after Tucker Carlson for what he's doing.
You are so blinded by your ridiculous, insane hatred of Tucker Carlson that you cannot see how irresponsible and hypocritical you are being. I mean, these tweets from Ted Cruz, I'm going to read you next, are a great example of this. So just a month ago, he tweeted this. He said, "They don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. Political violence is a left-wing phenomenon. Enough is enough. We need to shut it down." And then in response to Fuentes and Tucker this week, he tweeted this: Trump's bombing of the Ayatollah's nuclear facilities made the little Nazi mad. Good. So now you're turning around and you're calling somebody that you don't like a Nazi. You're doing this out of blind rage because you're so angry that the conservative base's attitudes are rapidly changing, that Nick Fuentes is getting national attention, and so you have turned around and in response, you are compromising your own values in anger, which is such a dangerous precedent to set. And unfortunately for you guys, yes, the attitudes are changing. So again, it makes sense why this group is incredibly frantic.
Guys, she got gills. How does she breathe?
Yeah, there is like so much she said that to like go through. Like when he said like insane hatred for Tucker Carlson. Like you cannot rationally have a problem with Tucker Carlson with his, talking about the Hamas eaters who killed Jesus. Him talking about like being consistently anti-American, pretty much opposing any time there's like a self-interested way of America advocating against it, doing like World War II revisionism, inviting Nick Fuentes, again, a known white nationalist who doesn't hide it, who praises Hitler, who says Heil Hitler on his show, who openly like goes out of his way to say that he is a Nazi. Again, this is not a example of like people calling like Donald Trump a Nazi, which I think is out of place. You can call him statist or maybe even authoritarian leaning, but calling him outright Nazi is simply out of the place. But calling an actual Nazi a Nazi is not like, oh, what are you like doing? No, it's doing the proper thing. It's calling people for what they are. Calling anti-Semites is doing what it actually is. And so, she's like calling somebody you don't like. That's not what the situation is about. And she ended this with like, attitudes are changing. Attitudes towards what? Anti-Semitism? Being okay with like having Nazis on your show? And to sort of connect it to the main topic of like, who is being the more consistent ones? Because I'm kind of like battling with this question. If you are like a conservative, if you are a Republican, is being pro-Israel more consistent than being anti-Israel, since this is the wave we are seeing, that either you have people like Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, like people in Congress being actually anti-Israel, are those the more consistent ones? Or are the people like Marco Rubio, even Donald Trump to a large extent, who are being the more consistent ones? Because if it is the first one, then I'm being like scared of what it actually will future look like. Marco, I know you, both of you are not really into sort of people like Brett Cooper. You don't fully follow, but yeah, what do you make of just like this one specific clip even?
Well, I mean, this fits in the larger trend we've seen since October 7, especially, of taking a term and taking away its real meaning and using it in order to make a statement which goes totally against what the word means. I mean, take genocide, for example, take apartheid. I mean, on this channel, we've taken them apart a number of times and pointed out how these people use words in order to change the meaning of the word itself, and therefore often reversing it, turning against their opponent. So it's nothing new. I mean, the fact that everybody's called a Nazi or everybody's called a genocide, causing genocide and all this kind of stuff, it's just in order to justify the fact that, even people that call for the death of Jews are not Nazi. Everybody's Nazi, so they can't be Nazis as well. But it's all, I mean, it's so shallow and transparent. It's quite pathetic, really. Just look at the actions of these people and tell you all that you need to do. You judge somebody from their action, not just for their words, because, even if you are, sometimes even if you are offensive or whatever, even if you call for violence, being what's the word I'm looking for? Incitement to violence, it doesn't necessarily cause the violence. So, and that's why the free speech laws in the United States are so precisely and so tight, because until you cause a problem, then you are not a problem. Until you take the actions that break the law, you're not a criminal. However, you have to be careful in certain situations where you effectively inspire people from causing violence. We've seen in jihad attack, we've seen anti-Semitism. So these people should be very, very careful when they use words like that and when there's accusation left, right, and center. But some of these people actually also do because they're evil, because they know that some of their followers, even somebody not particularly clever, will actually take them at face value and go out and commit the kind of crimes that they are effectively calling for.
Yeah. That clip you just showed there of this Brett Cooper talking about, again, a different version of the same problem, which is she's using the hypocrite charge as the main crux of her argument. And I agree with you. In the case of the Ayatollah and Iran, you're talking about essentially actual Nazis there in terms of what their attitude, and of course but she's using the hypocrite charge, which is one of the things which people do when they want to absolutely willfully miss the essential issues in an argument. And in this case, the argument is that you absolutely should have bombed Iran. That is the truth of the matter. And that is what has made all Western countries, not just Israel, safer as a result. But to willfully take the hypocrite charge as your argument in order to pick out an individual word in one tweet, an individual word in the other, and use that as the most crucial factor for forming an argument is deliberately missing the point. What is the essential point in each tweet? It's certainly not whether you use the word Nazi or not. And that's what happens there. But I'll leave it at that because I never thought I'd say the sentence, but I do want to make sure we've got time to talk about Francesca Albanese.
Yeah, and we can... okay, so I'll just quickly run down because we don't have much time. So Francesca Albanese, she came out with this report called Gaza Genocide, a Collective Crime. First of its kind, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm aware, when the UN came out and not sort of went after a country for committing genocide, which we have seen in the past, but going after countries, other countries that have complicity in the genocide. So you can absolutely have a complicity in genocide, right? We might remember World War II when Jewish immigration was barred by the US, by United Kingdom even to the mandate of Palestine. When there was, we already knew that Adolf Hitler is coming after the Jews. So you could have like complicity. But when it comes to Israel, you cannot have complicity since there is no genocide. And look at what is happening. Israel is the only country that is being targeted, or the people behind Israel, supposedly supporting Israel, are the only countries being attacked for being complicit in genocide. Now we are talking about Western countries. Again, I think she didn't go after every country. She specifically went for Western countries. And again, what is the Western policy on Israel? They recognize the Palestinian state to a large extent, many of them, besides US and few left outs. But UK, France, Australia, Canada, I think Canada, I'm not sure if it actually did happen, but many nations did even before, Spain, Ireland, Norway, recognize the Palestinian state, recognize the terrorist groups within the Palestinian state. Because what does the Palestinian state stand for but the leading parties? They recognize Hamas, they recognize the Palestinian Authority, both of them who support terrorism, both of them who support the destruction of the Israeli state. UN is coming after Israel in the ICJ, constantly passing resolutions against Israel. When Netanyahu comes speaking at the UN, they don't even stay in the same room. They leave the room. Netanyahu is the only world leader where this happens to such a large extent. So again, what we see here is this immense amount of not good enough when it comes to demands from the Western countries. And I think, sort of going to my main point, what needs to happen is a real stand-up. This is something we've been doing since October 7. We called on Netanyahu for not being strong enough. We called on Netanyahu to stop, and Israel, to stop justifying your existence. For people who want you dead, there is nothing you can say that will make you like them. You cannot say, well, we prevent a lot of Palestinian deaths, so that's why we deserve to exist. We actually let them know when we are attacking. We are allowing aid to go in when we go into Gaza. So you can justify our existence. No, this won't work. The only thing that will work is unrelenting, moral belief in yourself that you are doing the right thing. Israel is right when it defends itself and goes into Gaza. When it apologizes for it, that's when they win. That's when they know they've already gotten you. When you go to the ICJ, they've gotten you. When you go to the UN to talk about how friendly you want to be, they've won. You cannot win a war. You cannot like live a life by like flagellating yourself every single day, trying to justify your existence. Marco, any Richard, do you want to start since you were so eager on Francesca?
Yeah, well, this is based on the fact that Francesca Albanese has done yet another report telling us how Israel and anybody who talks to Israel, deals with Israel, trades with Israel, says anything positive at any stage about Israel is culpable of the most heinous crimes imaginable. She described the report's called Gaza Genocide, a collective crime. Well, there are many crimes done by collectives, or at least in the name of collectivism, but this certainly isn't one of them. What she's talking about here is her outrage that multilateralism, as she calls it, hasn't prevented Israel from defending itself. And essentially what she's calling for is mob rule at UN level, so that Israel could, and the likes of Israel, could never defend itself again in the future. And of course, we've seen that in action a number of times. I learned a few things from the coverage of this report, frankly. The things that countries themselves don't actually tell us they're doing, but should crow about. The fact that Germany has provided, frigates and torpedoes to Israel. Well, I haven't heard enough of Germany saying that, because that they should be proud to do that. And they should proudly admit it. And of course, the UK itself. I didn't know that there were 600 surveillance missions carried out by the UK over Gaza, for the benefit of Israel. Again, that's not admitted to because of the cowardice of our leaders, instead of it being, something that should be proudly acknowledged and promoted as us helping an ally who deserves to be helped, because they're the victim, of a war being started. And everything about the way the report was done is all focused on like the 63 countries she focuses on. And of course, she's talking about, the colonial world order as the frame of her criticism of it all. And of course, this is the most evil, bloody woman in existence, frankly, or certainly one of them, because when, some of the quotes from it, she talks about, for example, quote, the live streamed atrocity. And she's not talking about October the 7th there. She's talking about, all the Hamas propaganda since October the 7th of Gaza. But to use such a phrase is intentional, evil, and frankly, it's insulting to the victims of October the 7th, whom she only ever gives the most cursory, mention under duress, and is very quick to blame Israel for that as well.
Yeah, and just a quick thing to throw at the UK supporting the recon mission. I actually did know about it specifically because that's why Palestine Action was actually being proscribed as a terrorist organization, because the reason why they attacked that RAF base was because of these recon missions. So specifically, again, helping Israel defend itself by providing it with information about what is on the ground that is being attacked by groups in the UK. Marco.
Yeah, Francesca Albanese. Oh, God.
You want to say sorry?
No, I want to say she's an evil bitch. And not only that, not only she's evil, as Richard pointed out, to say that live stream atrocity of Israel is to gloss over what Hamas, her friends of Hamas, actually did on October 7th itself, live streaming the atrocity they were committing on the poor innocent people of Israel in the first place. And that's just an unforgivable level of evil. But also she's also stupid. She's totally stupid, because she invented the terms collective crime. Well, okay, let's play your game, shall we? Collective crime. So your friends, the Palestinians, are collectively criminals with Hamas, because they are the government. They did the atrocity of October 7th. So you're effectively, actively helping criminals, according to your stupid, perverted logic. And at the same time, she goes down the route talking about the Israel attacked the indigenous people of Palestine. It's like, are you actually stupid? I mean, Islam came out 200 years after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, or in the 7th century. Islam was invented. So the people you call the Palestinians, the Muslim Arabs that were there during the Ottoman Empire, you know, they're not exactly the Jews, are they? They're not exactly the people that were a number of times removed from the original land. But, you know, if you go down this route, you just setting yourself for failure. You just started to make a series of statements just based on some spurious historical event or some spurious religious or racial claim, which is not really how you should fight your fight woman. But you know, what do you expect? She's not very bright. She's just paid to do this job, to lick the boots of the Palestinians and every single terrorist in the Middle East. So she's doing what she's paid for by the UN, by us.
Yeah, I would only sort of maybe challenge one thing, and I think that can be such a thing as complicity. Like I've said, if you now it's a sort of like a different thing, but yeah, if there is a nation, if we trade with Russia when it's invading a sovereign nation, we are being complicit. We are allowing that to happen. To a large extent, even Ukraine was complicit in that. Like for a large time, it allowed like gas to go through. It's like yeah.
But the point, these people only thinks in terms of collective, in terms of tribe. Yeah. If there is somebody that commits a crime, it's an individual who should be picked up and taken to jail. You cannot go out the route of collective crime. Well, that's effectively giving a green card, a free pass to anyone who commits atrocity because, oh, well, it's collective guilt. I'm not going to go to jail. That just doesn't wash. These people are collectivists, tribalists, and racists.
Yeah, again, maybe there is a better. I think complicity is a better word for it than like, yeah, Western nations are not invading Ukraine, but they allowed it to happen and are still supporting it to a large extent. So that I think is right to be challenged, which again is not challenged by the UN. UN is not going after the EU nations for still trading with Russia, or at least I haven't heard of anything. It's specifically going after Western nations for being too helpful to Israel, which again is laughable if you look at the actions Western nations have taken against Israel. It's laughable even the idea that Israel is even properly defending itself. So this is the state of the things. But just to summarize, I think my main point of view is, you cannot apologize for your existence. When you are right, you have to defend it. And I'll throw in like my personal story. There was this girl I was talking to, I'm not anymore. But when we talked about politics or something, and something I still have in myself, I'm being very apologetic for capitalism. Especially, I think she was kind of lefty. So it's like, oh yeah, I like capitalism. I know it's like a bad thing. And you have to realize what you're actually doing, right? You are being, or I was being apologetic for believing that that individual rights should be respected. That the idea that when you go to work, you should actually get the sweat of your brow. You should actually get rewarded for the work you do. You cannot allow that to the socialists. You cannot act as you are the bad guy for believing in individual rights. You have to defend it fully. And unless we do, leftists will be winning because they are viewed as the moral ones. They are viewed as like they are fighting for the people. They are fighting for the individuals. No, it's we who are doing so, and they are the ones who are that want to. I mean, again, people who socialists who advocate for Palestinians, that they want to enslave Palestinians. They want to actually live. They want to have Palestinians to live in slavery, because that is what socialism is. People who defend Soviet Union, people who defend any sort of socialism are for slavery. Marco, any last thoughts from you?
I would just add that that's also the nature of fascism, left or right. If you think that human life, a human doesn't have right to his own life, they shouldn't live for his own sake, shouldn't have control over his own life, well, then you are either a lefty or a fascist. I don't care where you are. You're anti-life. You're anti individual rights. So as far as I'm concerned, you're an enemy.
Yeah. And just to back up the point you made, Daniel, ultimately having the confidence of the moral basis of your argument when you're defending capitalism, and that's one of the many things that Ayn Rand was particularly good at. And in her book, Capitalism: The Unknown Ideal, that's where she best lays out the moral defense of capitalism, starting right from why has man got rights and all the arguments that follow. Before getting to how a government should be run and all those kind of things. So if you haven't read that book, I would totally recommend it to understand how you can perhaps give a better defense to capitalism when it comes to arguments and not fall into the trap of so many Republicans or conservatives in this apologetic, it's for the general good, or it's got advantages and for everyone, but that's not the main reason, and all of those kind of weedy arguments. Because Ayn Rand's got the very best, and that the arguments, because they're based on reality, and I recommend it. Please read it.
Yeah, definitely go do that. And also sign up for the ARCUK's mailing list. The Irreplaceable Spark Conference has been announced next year in Austin, Texas. So we have more than a year to prepare. Tickets are already available if you go to the website objectivism.co.uk, and there's some early bird pricing that I think should be still available. So, but won't be for long. So now is the best time. You can get even the basic entrance you can get for a really good price. So I'd recommend checking out objectivism.co.uk to go to Irreplaceable Spark Conference. You can also see some of the Irreplaceable Spark Conference. There is a playlist on the YouTube channel, but you have to become the Inner Circle member. But you'll see sort of, I think, what we talk about here, the unapologetic defense of capitalism to a large extent, unapologetic defense of your own life. Many people pursuing their career paths, pursuing their life. For example, Linda Corder fighting against the California state and a county for wanting to shut down her gallery during COVID, and her standing up to that amount of pressure from the government. So there would be one talk I recommend. And also, Richard, when can people find your stuff?
Do check out the Briefly Objective. The link's in the description below for short form content. Lots of short clips. Go check it out.
And of course, we'll be back tomorrow with more episodes of the Daily Objective and the reality show. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you everybody for watching, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.